It's 9 minutes past 8. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We'll turn our attention now to the national conference. Well, yes, you know, they will be winding down sooner rather than later, but they've got a thorn in their midst, and some call it a bone of contention, if you will. Well, we're joined now by Dr. Tokunbo Adedeji, who is a professionals for change. Morning, and thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, you know, this matter about this report from the Committee on Devolution of Power, when it came to derivation, that principle, clearly they could not all agree. And so they're expected to return later this week to see if they can agree, because from the look of things, they all seem to be at daggers drawn. So you've followed this, their deliberations for some time, including this one, I reckon. What's your impression of what's going on?
Well, I hope Nigerians will not be surprised at my response. It's all been said from the beginning that this is going to come back to only one thing, talking about the truth of our existence as a nation. Until we get to that point, all these issues will continue to come up again and again. Derivation, resource control, statism. They will always be there until we sit at one point and ask ourselves, what exactly is it that we want for ourselves as a people or as a country? Do we want to stay together, or do we want to go our separate ways? If we must stay together, then under what conditions are we likely to agree to stay together?
Isn't that part of what this conference is meant to address?
It was supposed to be excluded. It was a no-go area. The issue of whether we want to secede or we want to break or we want...
They're taking it for granted. I mean, a lot of people say that it was saying that question has been asked. The answer has been given as yes. The question is find out how. And that's where they are.
What brought about that? The issues that are being discussed. So the point I'm saying is we're still dancing around.
Because even if they answer, let us assume that question had been asked, at this conference, and it was a part of it. And the unanimous answer was given as yes. Because even from the spirit of the conference, we would assume that that's what would eventually have transpired. Don't you think that they would still have found themselves in this quagmire?
No, they wouldn't have.
Why?
Because the people who would say, let us stay together, will come with a bundle of reasons to be able to convince the others. And those who are saying, let us stay apart, will also come with a bundle of reasons to be able to talk to each other. But they're not doing that now. They're using issues to be able to get to that point. But those issues will always be there until we resolve the real issue, which is, do we want to stay together? You see, the perception of the members of the delegation from the South is that for over the years, the North had been in complete control of the federal resources, because they've been in governance for over that period of time. And therefore, it is time now for the people of South-South to be able to say, hey, oil is in our backyard, we want to be able to use it to develop ourselves. After all, when you were in charge, there was not much of development that was coming from your end to our end, and yet the resource that you're using is coming from our backyard.
Is that really the case? Because, a host of people will say resource control has been, the front pages, or, on the burner for a very long time, even when we had someone from the Southwest as president of this country, getting more out of the resource for the people who actually have the resource in their own area has been an issue as far back as many can remember, or as far back as we've had this democracy.
If I remember when I was growing up, when we had regions, there wasn't anything like resource control. The regions were actually developing based on the resources that are available to them. So it was not a national discourse.
The question I'm actually trying to put to you, sir, is that whether or not they had answered, whether or not this question of being together was on the burner, they would still have gotten to this point. You don't seem to agree with me on that.
I don't, because that's where you're supposed... You don't put the cart before the horse.
What do you think the answer would have been? You think that a host of people don't want to stay together?
Believe me sincerely, with what derivation is talking about, with what resource control is talking about, people want to be able to determine their own future themselves. They believe that.
But why are they not saying it?
Because it's a no-go area. So they have to dance around issues. They have to talk about inequality. They have to talk about injustice. They have to talk about unfairness. Those are the languages they're using to couch their feelings.
A host of people would not agree with you. What do you think would have been the case if they said yes, for instance?
Yes, what?
Yes, we want to live together.
Yes, we want to live together.
Yes. You said the next question would have been how,
the next
right?
question will be convince me. I'm from the South. Convince me that our staying together is not going to be like the experience we have had in the last 40 years. Convince me that the oil that is in my backyard is not just going to be used to develop Abuja, rather than develop Yanagwa where we don't have good roads. That's going to come up.
You've couched it very differently, but some people would say that the next question would have been how, because if we all unanimously agree, it's not a matter of being convinced. If we all say people from the South and people from the Southwest, Southeast, Northeast, North Central, Northwest all say they want to stay together, the question will be how, not about one group convincing the other group about the need to stay together.
Excuse me. The reason why there was Biafra was what? The secession of Biafra was due to a certain reason. And the reason, till today, people don't want to talk about it, but it's still there.
Perhaps I should just rephrase the question this way. What's your take on the question of devolution of powers and, derivation?
Devolution of powers, principally, you would look at what structure of government that you want. In a democratic situation like you have in the United States of America, power devolves from the center and it goes to the states. It was the reverse before they all came together to form the United States of America. The states were independent of each other and they had their rules and regulations. But they all agreed to come together to form the United States of America. And in that agreement, the Constitution of America gives power to the center. But it also gives some measure of independence to the states. Now, if we are copying the structure of America in this country, then we're looking for what we call true federalism. Are we practicing true federalism? Has that been the situation since our independence?
Isn't that the basis for this question?
That's exactly right.
Isn't
and I am saying
the delegates are?
I am saying that is the issue that we need to put on the front burner in a conference like this. But they say it's a no-go area.
No. So far, so good. They have put it on the front burner. In fact, they seem to be tackling the question of federalism. Devolution of powers.
Thank you.
Derivation.
Thank you.
That's the question they're tackling.
Thank you. They're talking about a structure within the existing environment. We're saying, forget the existing environment. Let us ask ourselves, how do we want to stay together?